Hey guys, welcome back to another episode, another podcast of Football Talk with Hawk. I appreciate you guys stopping by wherever you are listening from. Hope your day is going absolutely fantastic. All right, so yesterday's video, and a couple of you reached out to me, which thank you. Those that are listening, appreciate it. Um, and asked how I was doing so they knew what to expect during the podcast, how I was doing these. Every single second of these podcasts is live, unedited, nothing else. Nothing's added to it, nothing's taken away. That's it. I'm sorry for the still screen on your screen if that's what you're watching. I've got the thumbnail up there, and that is it. And that is the plan. I want it to be 100% live, goof ups and all. If I go into a coughing fit because I'm laughing, whatever it may be, it is 100% live, uncut, unedited, whole 9 yards. All right. So, for those of you that asked that question, there is your answer. All right. Let's get into this. So, last night, so this is being done on a Thursday night into Friday morning. So last night, Dallas beats Seattle. And it was a big game because I didn't think Seattle's offense had the ability to score that many points. First of all, big nights for DK Metcalf. You look at the fantasy board right now, I won't dive into it a ton in the podcast, but I tell you what, it is a lot of fun, and it helps tell some of the story for the individual players. Because remember, we're going to look at this through, in a sense, 4 different prisms through these podcasts: owner with the business, the team with the coaches, the GM, the players, and then the fans. So, from the players aspect, that's where fantasy really helps to be able to get a full idea of what the player is doing. The team can be bad, but the player can be playing good. He's playing good. He's giving himself an opportunity to potentially get another contract, potentially rework the deal he's currently on, or hold out, force a trade, whatever it may be. But last night's game between the Seahawks and Cowboys, I was watching while the Seahawks were leading, going, this could really change the wild card situation in the NFC. Now, we went through the AFC, and you guys commented on the fact that it was an hour-long video. We went through 12 teams. 12 of the 16 teams in the AFC have a legitimate path to the playoffs, a legitimate opportunity. That's fantastic for football. The NFC, honestly, if we're looking at it right now, so here we go. We're going to jump straight into it, guys. We are going to jump straight into this. So if we look at the current NFC playoff picture, and this is including last night's game between Seattle and Dallas, you've got Seattle sitting there in the 7th slot at 6-6. Then you've got Minnesota sitting there also 6-6. Atlanta currently, because of the win last week over New Orleans, is leading the NFC South. They're below 500. The Lions are 3rd, Niners are 2nd, Eagles are 1st, Cowboys have the number 1 wild card slot. If you look down into the teams, who legitimately has a shot to make the playoffs? So, realistically, in the NFC South, you have 3 teams. It's not necessarily for a wild card, or is it? I was playing around with this earlier, and there is a scenario where two teams can get in from the NFC South, both with under 500 records. Most of these scenarios we're going to play out are not good. And I will show you why as we get into it. So we had 12 teams from the AFC be legitimate shot contenders at playoffs. In the NFC, you're basically looking at Philly, Dallas, San Francisco, Seattle, and the Rams. Detroit, Minnesota, we're going to throw Green Bay in there. Okay? We will throw Green Bay in there because of where they're at. They're only one game behind Minnesota. Chicago's out. Carolina's definitely out. Tampa Bay is really, they're out at 4-7. There's not a path that I see them getting in, but the Falcons and Saints both could easily be there. So you got 12 from the AFC and 10 from the NFC. Now, we are going to move quicker than we did yesterday. In fact, we're going to start from the top down. So let's run through Philadelphia's remaining schedule. That is actually the first thing we're going to do. Starting with this week. San Francisco at Philadelphia. San Francisco is coming off of a bye week. Okay? Coming off of long rest. Not a bye week. They played Seattle on Thanksgiving night. Longer rest. Philadelphia has that really hard game against Buffalo where their defense was on the field. We will get to coaches here probably next week on either the Monday night or the Tuesday night podcast. We're going to talk coaches. And I've got two surprise coaches that I would say are potentially going to be fired because in big games, their position continues to fail. But we'll go over that next week. So let's go into this. I like the Niners on rest. The Niners are healthier. And that Eagles defense was on the field a lot against the Buffalo Bills. So we're going to take the San Francisco 49ers in Week 13 over the Eagles. Week 14. Eagles at Cowboys. Now, if it's a rough game at home, they're going to go on the road against a division opponent, the Cowboys. And you're going to find this out. The NFC is going to end up kind of eating itself. We called it rubber matches for the AFC because it's going to be for slots. The NFC, it's the top guys that are going to be eating each other. It's San Francisco, Philadelphia, okay, Detroit, Dallas. It's the top guys, and the bottom guys really don't play them a ton. So it's actually at the top is where it's going to be going at each other. The question is, do I believe Philadelphia can lose 2 in a row? Yeah, I do. I don't think Philadelphia is half as good as what it looks like. They generated a good schedule. They play way too many close games. You don't always win close games. Remember the Vikings from 2 years ago? They were like 9-0 in one possession games, won the North pretty easily. Then last year, what happened? Dropped off a cliff. They were like 2-6. You don't always win close games. It's hard to do. And I think Dallas at home, they outplayed them in Philadelphia. Dallas is a great home team. On the road, I will normally take them, I'll normally take the opponent on the road. At home, give me Dallas to beat Philadelphia. It's a division game. You don't ever expect anything from the quote-unquote better team. That doesn't matter in division games. I think Dallas is good enough, healthy enough, The wide receivers are running well. I think Philly's going to lose back-to-backs here. San Francisco this week, Dallas next week. All right, week 15. Excuse me. Philadelphia at Seattle was just flexed into Monday Night Football. So this is a rubber match where Philly is going to either help or hurt a potential wild card team. I think they hurt. I think Philadelphia goes up. I don't think they lose 3 in a row. That would be considered a collapse. If they do lose to Seattle on Monday Night Football in the 12th man, which, yes, if they score 35 points, I could see happening. I really don't. I mean, I really could. Sorry. I really could see that happening. But I don't know. I think it's going to be one of those times where, especially if they lose the next 2 weeks, they're going to feel the potential number 1 slot slipping from their hands. If they lose to Seattle, it makes a pathway for potentially Dallas to get the number 1 slot, depending on what happens with San Fran. So, like, I don't think they lose to Seattle in week 15. All right, week 16. They're at home against the Giants. Not even going to question whatsoever. There is no freaking way the Giants are going to beat the Eagles on the road, even if Tommy DeVito's playing really, really well. All right, week 17. They are at home against Arizona. Once again, no way. Kyler Murray, honestly, we'll go into some of the player movements next week as well, because next week I'm going to have a full slate of shows that'll go over different things. I think there's a couple teams that need to really inquire about Kyler Murray, and Arizona has to listen. Arizona needs to listen. I think Philadelphia continues to keep Arizona down so that their draft pick continues to be high in week 17. Then in week 18, this one, you've got, where'd it go? I know they're playing, where in the world did they go? There they are, on the road against the G-Men. Once again, not a chance. Not a chance. Not a chance at all. Okay? So, in the scenario that we just painted, you have got a 14-3 Philadelphia Eagle team with losses to Washington, San Francisco, and Dallas. Those are your 3 losses. All right, here we go. Let's go back. Week 13. San Francisco is currently the 2nd seed. Let's go through their schedule. So San Francisco, we said, beats the Eagles this week. Next week, home against Seattle. San Francisco beats them there. Then they're on the road against Arizona. Definitely taking the 49ers in that game. All right, so now we head down to a big matchup, a Super Bowl rematch between the Ravens and the 49ers in San Francisco. We've got some really good games. Really good games. You guys heard yesterday. And we're going to do the Cowboys schedule. You'll find out that Cowboys schedule again tonight if you don't remember from yesterday. But Ravens versus 49ers, I mean, come on. What a game. And this is going to be both teams trying to get the number 1 spot. Ravens in the AFC and the Niners in the NFC. So yesterday we said Ravens lose. We got to stick with that, so we're going to stay consistent. San Francisco, because they're home, and because I think the 49er defensive line is definitely capable of kind of containing Lamar Jackson a little bit, I think they do it. Week 17 at Washington, I think San Francisco wins that. Then week 18, home against the Rams. Listen, Kyle Shanahan has Sean McVay's number. It's just what it is. So in this scenario, after running down only Philadelphia and San Francisco gets the number 1 seed. San Francisco gets the number 1 seed. In this scenario, with both of them 14-3 so far. All right, the Lions are next. So the Lions this week at New Orleans. New Orleans is going to be using 3 tight ends and 2 running backs almost all game. Olave's hurt. Shaheed is hurt. Michael Thomas is on IR. Detroit's defense should have a field day. And in fantasy, really it's going to be Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, Taysom Hill, Juwan Johnson. Like, it could be ugly. Or who knows, maybe they'll have a ton of points. But nonetheless, the next week, so next week is the week that we have both Eagles, Cowboys, and Bills, Chiefs. The Lions go to the Bears. Listen, don't get caught up. Just don't. Justin Fields and that Bears team was fast on turf. The reality is, get him back on grass in cold weather. Detroit's better. And their line is bigger. And they're going to be able to push them around. Detroit will beat the Browns in week 14. All right, week 15. They're at home against the Broncos on Saturday night. I like them at home. Sorry, I really do. I like the Lions when they're home, and I think the embarrassing loss on Thanksgiving, the way they lost, and the way they've played the last 2 games, Dan Campbell, they're going to be back in. They're getting a mini bye by playing on Thanksgiving. I think they're going to be rested. I think they're going to be ready, and they're going to be ready to play. So they beat the Broncos in week 15. Week 16, they're against Minnesota. This is one of those rubber matches. Now, they play them twice. This is huge for Minnesota. So let's transition for a second. Let's talk about both teams with this. Minnesota's chances are going to depend on these 2 games. Minnesota has 2 games against Detroit in the final 3 weeks. Week 16 and week 18. With 1 game in the middle. Now, if you're Minnesota, what do you have that can beat Detroit? They give up a lot of deep plays. My question is not about whether they have Justin Jefferson or Jordan Addison. My question is, what else do you have? Because it's going to take more than those 2 to be able to beat a Detroit Lions team who, frankly, can run through your defense just running behind the big hog mollies. In a dome, everybody's going to be fast. I think the points are high. The better offense is Detroit. The better team is Detroit. I'm taking Detroit to win in week 16 on the road against Minnesota. Week 17, Detroit at Dallas. I'm doing Dallas. Dallas at home is tough. Dallas at home is tough. The Lions, to their credit, have continually gotten better on the road. But I think this one's a little bit much. I really think this one's a little much. Dallas wins at home in week 17 over Detroit. And then week 18, we've got Detroit once again beating Minnesota. So at the end of the year, the top 3 seeds are going to be San Francisco 1, Philly 2 because of the head-to-head, and Detroit 3. Now, this is a bad setup for Detroit, playoff-wise, because remember, the lowest seed plays the number 1 seed. So if Detroit wins, and Philadelphia wins, they're playing at Philadelphia. Just the reality. Just the reality. And then if they win that game, they would probably have to play at San Francisco. Really, the Packer loss is going to come back to bite them hard, because that took out their chance at that number 1 slot, or even the number 2 slot, where they'd be able to get 2 home games. It just really made it difficult. Now, if Seattle can knock off Philly on that Monday Night Football game and somehow they lose 3 in a row, okay, Detroit still has a shot at the number 2 seed. It's just a very, very hard road to be able to play that way. Very hard. All right, we're going to skip the NFC South for a second. Week 13, we're going to the Cowboys, which is currently first wild card slot in the NFC. So Cowboys already beat the Seahawks this week. Next week, we have them beating the Eagles in Week 14. Week 15, we start it really gets interesting for the Cowboys. So get this stretch. Eagles, then they're on the road against Buffalo. Remember, we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Buffalo at home against a Texas team that isn't great on the road. Buffalo beats Dallas. But week 16, they're in Miami. And I believe they get embarrassed in Buffalo. And Dan Quinn has that defense so freaking locked in that Tua won't know where his head's supposed to be throwing to, because they're that good. They are that good on defense. So we're going to pick Dallas to beat Miami in Week 16. But then you got Week 17. They go home to play the Lions. This is a brutal stretch. So if they can come through this stretch 3-1, Eagles, Bills, Dolphins, Lions, some really good offenses. If they can come through all that at 3-1, it'll be very impressive, and then they will legitimately deserve to be talked about. This stretch is going to show what the Cowboys are. It really will. If they go 1-3, it'll be a bad sign. A very bad look for the Cowboys. Okay? But I'll pick them to win at home against Detroit in Week 17. And then I'll pick them to win again in Week 18 over Washington in Washington. I know it's a division game. Could flip-flop. I get it. Come on, guys. I don't even know what Washington's going to be. Okay? Let's just be honest. All right, so we have 4 teams done. We said there was 10 potentially out of the NFC that could make the playoffs. 10 out of the NFC that could make the playoffs. 4 are done. Let's let's see what we can do with the rest. So let's do both of the NFC South teams. Let's start with the New Orleans Saints. We've got them losing in Week 13 to Detroit because they're playing Detroit this week at home. We've got them losing. Then Week 14, you're going to see some interesting matchups pop up here. Week 14, they're playing the Panthers at home. You better not lose. Don't want to give everything away for next week, but honestly, I think Dennis Allen is really in trouble. Yeah, they've had a lot of injuries, and trust me, I get it. But this team has not looked great all year. They're kind of running off the steam still of what they were with Drew Brees and Sean Payton, not off of what they actually are, which is really a mediocre team that has a really good running back, a solid receiving core, and an okay defense. But I really don't believe Dennis Allen is a good head coach. But nonetheless, that's for next week. All right, back on track here. Week 15, so we've got them winning Week 14 over the Panthers. Week 15, at home against the Giants. You know, without Tommy DeVito, if it was Daniel Jones, I'd say the New Orleans Saints defense is going to eat them up. Really would. Brian Dable and Tommy DeVito have something kind of clicking here. They've won back-to-back games. Beat the Patriots. They beat Washington. They've won back-to-back games here. So I could see this easily flipping in the G-men's favor. Very easily. But because they're home, and only because they're home, I'm going to take the Saints at home over the Giants in Week 15. All right, here we go. Week 16, on the road against the Rams. Rams, they're better. We're going to talk about them as one of the wild card teams here shortly. The Rams are better. They're going to be home. If Kyron Williams is healthy, that Saints defense has no shot. The Saints just aren't good enough. So we're going Rams in Week 16 over the Saints. Week 17, Saints at the Bucs. You know, the Saints were one team that Tom Brady hated. Absolutely hated. They should be a little bit healthier. Olave shouldn't be hurt. Shaheed shouldn't be hurt. But the Bucs are playing okay. They're not playing bad. In Tampa Bay, I mean, honestly, on the road, division game, give me the Bucs. Give me the Bucs in Week 17. And then in Week 18, they're home against the Falcons. They just lost on the road in an embarrassing fashion. They'll remember, they'll be ready because they want to beat the Falcons at the end of the year. Week 18, Saints and Falcons, very crisp rivalry. Very crisp rivalry. And the Falcons are not a great road team, even though I think it could be playing for the division. Listen, no. I've got the Saints beating the Falcons just because between two bad offenses, I'll take the home team. I will take the home team. All right, so that is the Saints. Now let's go back and let's do the Falcons. Now we're making much better time tonight than we did yesterday because, yesterday ran long. All right. This week, Week 13, Falcons at Jets. We already said we're taking the Jets. So that yesterday, We're going to say it again today. Week 14, Falcons at home against the Bucs. We're taking the Falcons at home. They're a really good home team. Week 15, here's the game I really don't know how to pick. Falcons against the Panthers on the road. So Falcons at Carolina. A lot within me. Falcons are a horrible road team. There's a lot inside of me that says Carolina is going to get their second win of the season against the Falcons. Just there is a lot inside of me that says that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to pick Carolina at home against Atlanta in Week 15. Week 16, after being beaten by Carolina, I think they bounce back against the Colts. Now, this is one of those games I told you yesterday with the Colts. You could flip me on it. I'm taking the better home team. I'm taking the team that's playing at home, that's going to have the atmosphere, that just seems to play amazingly in that Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Okay? That's all I'm doing. That is all I'm doing. That's it. Falcons over the Colts because they're home. They're home. All right. Next one, Week 17. Little bit of an interesting game here. This is the week that the Bucs play the Saints. And I think they're going to be watching that scoreboard a little bit because they're on the road against the Bears. I said they were going to lose to the Panthers. That's a division game. Do I believe in the Bears? Do I believe in the Bears? Do I believe Justin Fields will still be healthy at this point in time? That I really don't know. I mean, let's be honest. He's probably going to get injured again. But staying as is, are the Bears better? I mean, really? Are the Bears better at home? Is the smart money actually to pick Chicago? I can't believe I'm saying this. Chicago is absolutely ruining their chances of getting two really high picks. You know, it's just what it is. But, you know, we'll kind of have to see how the end of the season plays out. I'm thinking Chicago may win. I'm thinking Chicago gets the W. So that's what we're going to do. Week 17, Chicago gets the W. And then week 18, on the road against the Saints, we've got them losing. So currently, the Saints will make the playoffs at 8-9. And the Falcons will miss the playoffs at 7-10. That is currently what we have. Currently. Okay? So 8-9, below 500 team, makes the playoffs at 8-9. And then 7-10 Atlanta gets a decent draft pick, but not great. And they miss out on the division. Now, if you flip this, that one game at the end of the year, if Atlanta beats New Orleans, even with everything we've said, Atlanta gets in. Also, 8-9. So still below 500. So we've now gone through 6 of the potential 10 teams that could potentially make the playoffs. 6 of the 10 teams. We've got the top wildcard spot, the top 3 in the conference, and then the NFC South. We've done all of those. So now let's go to the wild card teams. That is Seattle, Minnesota, the Rams, and the Packers. Those are the 4 teams we have left for 2 wild card spots. 2 wild card spots. 4 teams. This is where we're at now. Okay, we go back to week 13. Let's take the team that's currently sitting there. Okay, let's just take the team that is currently sitting there. Minnesota. We already know that I've got them losing 2 games automatically. Those 2 games are against Detroit. So we already have them losing 2 games. What about the other 4? Well, let's look at this. So this week, I believe Minnesota is off, if I am not mistaken. Yes, week 13 is their bye week. Week 14, they come back from a bye, offensive coach, going into Las Vegas. Offensive coach into Las Vegas to play the Raiders. Really? To me, the Vikings are one of those teams. Dobbs was good, but the offense isn't great. It's very much a boom or bust type offense. If they boom, they better not be able to be outscored. When they bust, the Raiders could beat them by only scoring 17 points. This is a tricky game for me. I want to say Vikings in this scenario. I want to say Minnesota beats the Raiders. That's what I want to say. But something inside of me says Oakland is going to be really tough. That defense is really good. That front 4 is solid. And I don't know if they're going to have the big game. Remember, this Raider team is not the McDaniel team. This Raider team plays really well. Antonio Pierce has these guys dialed in, has them believing they can win. They played Miami really close. They played Kansas City really close. The 31-17 score does not tell the story of that game. Kansas City was in a dogfight to beat the Raiders. Their offense just doesn't have that power yet. But I think they can beat the Vikings 2017 at home. So we're going to go Vikings lose week 14 on the road to Oakland. Now, Minnesota at Cincinnati. We did this yesterday. You can flip me on this game. You could flip me on the Raider game. Okay? Home, dome team, on the road. Cincinnati's home. Cincinnati is basically Minnesota, just in tiger stripes instead of being in horns. That's really all it is. Jake Browning with a lot of receivers and a running back against Josh Dobbs and a lot of receivers and not nearly as good of a running back. And 2 defenses that kind of mirror each other. So now it goes to the home team. You can flip me on it. But I'm going home team. That's what we did yesterday. So that's what we're going to stick with. Week 16, losing to the Lions. Week 17. Now, before, so this is the sandwich game. They're home against Green Bay. This is a big game. Home against Green Bay could potentially be Green Bay jumping them. We'll do Green Bay next. could potentially be Green Bay jumping them in the wild card spot. So you come off the bye, you lose to Oakland and Cincinnati and Detroit. Then you've got this sandwich game against Green Bay. At home, currently Monday Night Football. If I was Monday Night Football, I'd leave it. I wouldn't flex it. I really wouldn't, because of the potential playoff implications. Just being honest. Okay? So let's say Minnesota beats them in week 17. Week 18, we have them losing to Detroit. So then Minnesota ends the year potentially 7-10. Potentially 7-10. Okay? All right, let's go back. Green Bay Packers. Green Bay Packers. Home against the Chiefs this week. Home against the Chiefs. Sorry, Green Bay. You're not beating the Chiefs. Good win on Thanksgiving. The Chiefs are no. Just no. No. All right, the next week. Green Bay at the New York Giants. I'm sorry. I like what Daboll's doing. The Giants are playing tough. It's going to be in the Meadowlands. It's going to be rough. The defense hasn't been bad. Is Jordan Love going to be able to hit guys like Jaden Reed or Christian Watson in the weather in New York? I think Daboll has the team ready. I really do. And I think they beat them. I really think they do. I think the Giants beat the Packers at home just kind of because of how everything rolls around. I don't trust Love yet. But the next week, week 15, they've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. They win that game. Week 16. So here we go. We're getting down to the end of the season. Last 3 games. What's going to happen? They're on the road against Carolina. Now, I think the Packer offense is better than the Falcon offense. And I definitely think the Packer defense is better than the Falcon defense. So you know what? We're going to go Green Bay on the road, needing to win to even have a shot at anything, beating Carolina. Week 17, we've got them losing to Minnesota. Week 18, Green Bay is home against Chicago. All right. So here is the way. Green Bay could make it in through what we just did. Make it in at 8-9. Currently, they'd make it in over Minnesota. Minnesota is 7-10. We do have 2 games we could flip, the Raider game and the Cincinnati game. But Green Bay has a legit shot, 8-9, of making the playoffs. All right, we have 2 teams left, both in the AFC West. So we're going to go back and we're going to start with the Rams. The Rams are a polarizing team. Not because they're so amazing, but because the organization is so well run. Because the coaching staff is so dang good. It's hard to beat them even when they're at their worst. And I think they're going to make the playoffs. And here's why. This week, they're at home against the Browns. Joe Flacco's starting. Give me a break. Really? We said this yesterday. Just give me a break. Let's not even dwell on that game. The Rams absolutely smoke the Browns. Okay? So then we got the next week, Rams at the Ravens. Ravens are going to smoke the Rams. They're just not built right now to compete on the road. Week 15, excuse me, week 15, Rams at home against Washington. They're home, picking the home team. Then the next week, Saints at Rams. We already picked the Rams in week 16 to beat the Saints. Week 17, on the road against the Giants. I've actually got the Giants beating them. I think they kind of calmed down a little bit. It's going to be cold, wet. You know, we've seen them. We saw them against Green Bay. Granted, Brett Rippon was the quarterback, but they just don't look as comfortable in bad weather right now. They are an LA team. Nice weather, you know, those nice weather guys that, you know, fair weather fellows. Do I think the team's tough? Yes. But I think it's LA. Like, let's just be legit here. The home games, they're going to be able to win. Road games are going to be a little bit tougher. I've got the Giants winning on the Giants winning at home, week 17 over the Rams. And then week 18, we already said we got the 49ers beating the Rams. So in this scenario, the Rams are also 8-9. The Rams are 8-9 and make the playoffs. Now, we have one team left. At this time, we have San Francisco 1, Philly 2, Detroit 3, New Orleans 4, Dallas at the number 1 wildcard seed at 5, Green Bay is 6, and the Rams are 7. Now, the reason Green Bay is 6 is because they beat the Rams. That is the head-to-head tiebreaker that currently comes into play. Okay, let's see if the Seattle Seahawks, what their road would look like, and then we will wrap this thing up. So we already know they lost. So they are 6-6 right now. Right now they're 6-6. Nothing else about it. They are 6-6, heading into a big playoff stretch. Week 14. Week 14, next week. Let's see here. Where are they at? On the road against San Francisco. We already said they lose. Week 15. They are at home against Philadelphia. We said they lose. Week 16. Noticing a trend here, guys? Noticing a trend. Some of these games are affecting what else happens. Week 16 on the road against Tennessee. Now, I don't think weather plays a factor. Legitimately, this is going to be Pete Carroll versus Mike Vrabel. Basically, mirror pictures of each other. Defense, tough, gritty. I know many people would say, oh, Seattle's got to be better. Really? In a dome against Dallas, they scored 35. Basically by one receiver. And then when it came down to the end of the game, couldn't complete a fourth down pass to keep drives going to save their life. Let's just call it for what it is. Okay? Yeah, Dallas was a big defense. Sometimes you give up a stinker, okay? They had been playing so well. Let's give the Dallas defense one game to not look like they're absolutely supreme. Okay? On the road against Tennessee. You can flip me on this one. I'm taking Tennessee because they're home. And absolutely, positively, nothing else. Then week 17, home against Pittsburgh. I will take the Seahawks at home against Pittsburgh. And then week 18, I've got them beating the Arizona Cardinals. This one, I believe, is actually in Arizona, but I still have them beating the Arizona Cardinals. I am correct, yes. I believe that was the Thursday night game. But that is week 18. That is week 18. So if everything that I just played out for you happens, this is going to be your NFC playoff picture. You're going to have San Francisco at 1. You're going to have Philadelphia at 2. You're going to have Detroit at 3. You're going to have New Orleans at 4. Dallas at 5. Green Bay at 6. And the Rams at 7. Seattle misses the cut at 8 and 9 because of the head-to-heads against the Rams. Seattle will have to beat Tennessee to be able to get in to the playoffs. That's it. That's it. So, guys, that's the NFC. 7 and 10, 7 and 10, 8 and 9 teams, 6 and 11 teams. The worst team potentially in the NFL, maybe. I know the Bears want the Panthers to keep losing. The Patriots want the Panthers to win a couple. Maybe the Patriots. Could you imagine the Patriots getting the number 1 pick? Oh, my goodness. My goodness gracious. They better fire Bill Belichick because he will absolutely butcher getting a number 1 pick. But anyway. So, guys, that's where we're at. And that is where we are going to end this. Thank you for stopping by. It was a longer of episode. We got through 10 teams. It's not over an hour, though, and we're going to keep it that way. So let's wrap this up. Guys, I appreciate you for stopping by and listening. Hopefully it gave you a little bit of insight of what we can look forward to through the end of the year and how much these games are going to matter. It's why I love football. You guys have a fantastic weekend by the time you guys are listening to this. And the next video or podcast will actually be my picks for the upcoming week. And looking forward to that. So until next time, this is Black Hawk signing off for Football Talk with Hawk. Have a great day.